long as it's not this one. Dr. Strangelove?
I've never seen that.
Never? Oh, it's a great movie.
I'm a big movie buff too, so I'll probably.
Dr. Strangelove. How many of you have seen Dr. Strangelove? It's a 60s movie, Dr. Strangelove. It's about nuclear war, and in the Nazi ex-Nazi scientist is played by Peter Sellers, and every once in a while his arm goes up like this, and he brings it down. a slight indication of a polarity. Yeah. The subtitle is How I Learned to Love the Bomb or something like that. It's a crazy movie, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, do you have any questions about what you just did? I'm sure you could have used more time, but as long as you had enough time to kind of get a sense of it and what to do and how to do it, then I'm assuming that you have that platform for which you can generate future experience. Yes?
One of the techniques I used was the Tremurti to go into different positions.
Okay. Different perceptual positions, and also different positions in terms of time and future and looking back and so on.
Yeah.
Great, absolutely. Sometimes a simple thing like tempo is wonderful. You just slow down the tempo of an event, then you can deal with it. It doesn't overwhelm you. You don't get, all frustrated and go crazy or whatever it is you did. Sometimes just a larger scope of experience, seeing the big picture can make a huge difference. About 4 years ago, I was scheduled to do some workshops in Chile, and I'm wondering if I said this already in the evening today. Did I talk about this? Yeah, then I won't do it again. Well, they can ask you. Well, very briefly, there was a situation which I could have easily gotten frustrated and angry with my son, but I kept the big picture of my outcome. My big picture outcome was to have a good time with my son on this trip. And I managed to keep, I just put off getting angry. I procrastinated. And it worked great. And now we laugh about it. Now it's one of those things where you look back and you go, oh, wow, oh, that was such a thing. And, I could have made it into a really nasty situation. But so there are times when procrastination really pays off. Okay, now, the next thing I want to do is teach you how to build a new quality. If you want a new quality of yourself, you now have all the information that you need. You know how you have one quality, and you've done what I call tune-up, which is improving it, adding in perceptual positions and this, that, and the other, all the different things that we did yesterday, and then dealing with counterexamples and transforming counterexamples, which we've done today. All of those things give you what I call a template. It's something that works. It's a structure that works for you. It might not work for anybody else, but it works for you. And that means that all you have to do is take that structure, whatever it is, and plug in examples from your memory, which you've been doing already. Sometimes I've asked you to add in additional examples of in a particular time frame, or additional examples from a different perceptual position, and so on. So you've already done almost everything. It's just putting it together. Whatever the structure is that you now know works for you, all you really do is you sit back and you close your eyes and you allow your unconscious mind to help you select examples of the new quality from other people, from yourself, from different perceptual positions, all that good stuff. And basically, you just plug it into the structure. So, I'd like to demonstrate that with someone, but before I do, I want to talk a little bit about it. Because there are some potential problems. Ideally, when you build a new quality for yourself, you have no database to start with. It's like you've never been scintillating or witty or loyal or whatever it is. It's just never part of your life. You never thought of yourself in that way. Doesn't mean you were never that way, but you never thought about yourself in that way. You never built a structure. So ideally, there's nothing in there at all to start with. Now, if I say I do have a quality, that means I have a positive database. I have some kind of database in there with examples of having this quality. If I know I don't have this quality, then that's a negative database. No, I'm not that way. And that means you have a database of not being that way. You're boring, you're never exciting with other people, or whatever it is. And you have a whole bunch of examples of being boring, which is another way of saying not exciting. Now, ideally, you have no database at all. There's nothing. Have you ever had the experience that someone came up to you and they said, wow, you're really, and they give you a word, and you go, what? Have you ever had that? You know, you're really sexy, and you go, what? And it's like it doesn't compute. It's not that you're not, and it's not that you are, it's that, what? There's just an absence of anything in there. That's the ideal. Because that means that there's nothing in there to get in the way of building something new. If you already have a positive for that, then you already have a database, and you could enhance it by adding a few more examples, but it wouldn't really do you much good because you already got a database. If you try to build a positive database when you already have a negative one, that's going to build conflict. And we'll deal with that. That'll create ambiguity or uncertainty. And that'll be a lot of work unless you do a couple of other things first. So we'll get to that. In fact, that's the next thing we'll get to, is what do you do with an ambiguous database? We're kind of not sure. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. So ideally, you have no database at all. Now, and it's important to test for this, because otherwise you're wasting your time here, and it's a lot of work and struggle here, and you'll end up with ambiguity. In terms of selecting something that you could build for yourself, you could think about people that you admire. Oh, who do I admire, and what's special about them that I would really like to be, that I don't feel I am at the moment? You could think about something that maybe you're always asking other people for reassurance. Tell me I'm intelligent. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me I'm loving. Tell me I'm... keep going for people to reassure you in some way. That might be an indication that you don't have a database for that particular quality. In the book, there's a transcript of a guy I worked with who didn't feel lovable. And it wasn't that he felt unlovable. He just didn't feel lovable. He had basically no database in there. And I said, I knew him, and I liked him. I thought he was lovable. And he said, well, I think you're lovable. And he said, and then I said, now, what did you do with that? So another way to test for whether you've got a database is imagine someone else saying to you, oh, you're really so-and-so. You're really, and plug in the quality. And then notice your response. It could be, yeah, I am, in which case you got this. It could be, no, I'm not that, in which case it's that. Or it could be, does not compute. What? Years ago, a woman came up to me and said, you're a very spiritual person. And I went, what? And for weeks afterwards, I was scratching my head and going, what on earth is she talking about? Because I'm, generally speaking, kind of a hard scientist and anti-religion, or a-religious at least. And for me now, spiritual has a little broader meaning now than it did then. But at that time, it's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I just did not compute. So to get some sense of where this would be really useful, another possibility is that you don't quite have a zero database, but you have a few pluses. And in fact, you got a small start on this, but it's something that has only been true of you in rare situations, once in a blue moon, that kind of thing. And that would mean that you kind of got a start on a new quality, but you haven't gotten very far. That could be another opportunity. Another possibility would be if you swing between opposites. If you find that you are very, very, very outgoing at certain times and then very, very, very much a hermit at other times. That maybe you could build something in between that would be a balance between the opposites. That would be some kind of intermediary state where you could be outgoing with people but not quite so outgoing and not quite such a hermit. That you could have whatever the qualities are, that you could have some balance between them. Bulimics could really use this. Really, because they go. So if you think of something where you swing between opposites and you're almost never in the middle, you could build something that's right in the middle. Whatever middle is for you, whatever opposites are for you. Does it give you some ideas? What could you build for yourself that would make you even more of who you want to be? And I think that's all the preface I want to do. If anybody has something in mind that they'd like to become, I'd like to work with them. Demonstrate. Well, I'm not too fussy. That might be good. Anybody? Do you want to build? Sure. Okay, come on up. And don't tell me what the quality is, okay? Okay. You have to do all the work. I don't. A little bit tangled here. Somewhere in here there's a microphone. Okay, so you've identified some name or some quality, right?
Yes, correct.
That you would like to have as part of
Yes.
yourself. Mm-hmm. And right now you don't think of yourself as that way?
No, I don't think of myself at any strength in that area.
Okay, a little bit maybe?
Just a little bit.
A little bit now and then?
Yeah, a little bit now and
so
then.
that would be one of these things, where you have a little bit of a start.
Sort of, yeah. It's maybe here or maybe there at one time or another.
Okay.
For the most part, it's not there.
Okay. Now, when you say it's not there, I need to be a little careful. Because we could be talking about one of these in here, where he has a negative database of, I'm really not that kind of person. So tell me a little bit more about this. Are you?
Okay. It's really not the totally negative.
Okay.
But there's one part of it that's missing a lot of times.
Okay.
The quality. So without saying what the quality is.
Okay, so there's one part of the quality.
Yeah.
So the quality is composed of like sub-qualities or aspects?
Aspects.
Okay.
Yeah. I could use one word without saying what the quality is. Conversation is missing.
Okay, that's a specific behavior. Okay. Okay, so you have had this quality in a few examples, but in most other situations you don't have the quality, but you don't have the opposite. Is that right? Whatever the opposite of that quality would be?
I also have some opposites.
Okay. How many? These would be counterexamples. What we've been talking about is counterexamples.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be a 50-50.
About 50-50.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little more ambiguous. And how many of them are each? If it's a relatively small ambiguity, we can proceed. If it's, I've got 3 on one side and 3 on the other, or something like that. If I've got 5,000 on one side and 5,000 on the other, I want to wait.
It's not you know, a whole great amount. I mean, it's not like a whole lifetime full of
Okay.
50-50.
Well, give me some numbers.
Some numbers.
Rough
okay.
numbers.
Rough numbers. 50-50.
50 of each?
50 of each. Yeah.
That's more ambiguity. I think I'd rather wait.
Okay.
Because we can do that, but it's a little different.
Okay. Fine.
Okay? Okay, great. Because I want to demonstrate things in order.
Right.
So, is there anybody else who'd like to build a new quality for themselves? And by the way, it's often true that there is some kind of situation like this, and this is not appropriate. What I like to demonstrate it because it's the simplest possible situation, where you don't have the complexity of a bunch of counterexamples in there that you have to deal with and so on. Okay?
What about the numbers? You don't want numbers.
Numbers of?
You are asking him about how many examples.
Well, see, ideally this is where you don't have any examples or counterexamples, or very, very few.
No.
You don't have many examples.
No, I don't have examples.
Okay, great. Okay, come on up. And if we're wrong, we'll find out.
It's going to be in my language.
Well, I don't even need to know what it is, so that's fine. Sure, in your native language, by all means. Anytime you have a native language that's not English, by all means do as much of your work in that language, unless you're going to be working in English. Then it would be better to learn in English. But if you're working in the other language, mostly, by all means, translate everything into your language. Okay, so there's this quality you'd like to have. Okay. And you have no examples at all of having that quality?
Maybe one or two.
One or two, okay. And do you have any sense of not having that quality?
Oh, yes.
Oops. Now remember, there are examples of positive, and there are positive, negative, and there are also things that are neither of these. So let's say this quality was excitement, then this might be boredom. And then there's a whole bunch of experiences that are neither excitement or boredom.
No, but I don't have it, but I have seen people who exhibit that
Okay.
quality.
Okay, but you
And
have not exhibited.
No, but I wish that I have,
Okay.
that.
No, okay. And it's hard to ask about negation. Negation's a funny kind of thing to talk about. Do you have lots of examples of having the opposite of this quality that you speak of?
Having the opposite of that quality.
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of the opposite of what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have examples of that?
Yeah, but the bad examples, those.
Well, you don't like them, right?
No, because I want this quality.
Right. See, if you have a negative database, then this is not appropriate. If let's say my desired quality, I want to be kind.
Okay.
And I have lots and lots of examples of being mean to people and punching them and knifing them and insulting them and things like that, then this is not appropriate for this particular example, for this particular
So
thing.
you want to have negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. No, I have the negative, but I want to acquire the new one.
Okay. Well, this is not appropriate then.
Okay.
We need to wait on you too. So I apologize, and
No, it's okay.
we try again. We try later. We'll do you later. Okay. It's tricky to talk about, and this is not uncommon that people come up and think, well, I'll go for a new positive thing, but I'd like to demonstrate, if possible, the situation where there's essentially no database in there to start with, because it's simplest. Yeah, right. Of either. If there's a database of the positive, then it's a waste of time. If your database of the opposite, then you build conflict, create ambiguity. Now, if it's a small group, and it may be that no one is appropriate for this right now, in which case I can talk about the example in the book and give you an example of that, and then kind of turn you loose. And what is it? Almost noon. Yeah. Okay. So, anybody else?
You know what might help? It would help me, I guess,
Okay.
If you could give some examples. You gave the example of someone said you're spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
and that didn't compute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have people who know me would never say that. There's some, you're this way or that way, and I'm thinking, but I'm also thinking I'm the opposite of that.
Yeah, that's what we don't want. Okay, let me just.
I'm sure it's the opposite. It's like, well, it's not even something I do or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is confusing.
Well, let me just go through it very carefully, and I'll have to just describe the situation. Okay. This example is in the book. It's not in your notes, but it's in the book if you want. By the way, this is the book. Sell the book. It's a very, very complete set of notes for this seminar. More because I can't possibly say everything that's in the book. Now, here's the process. Let me describe what I did with this one guy, and that is in the book. Here's a guy who didn't think of himself as lovable. And I knew he was married. He was in an ongoing master practitioner training. And I knew he was married. I knew his wife loved him, to the best of my knowledge. And that I thought of him as a lovable guy. He was a very pleasant person to be around, but he did not think of himself as lovable. But he also didn't think of himself as unlovable. Didn't think, you're scum or something like that. He just didn't have a database for being lovable. It just somehow it never got built for him. He was English. He was very auditory. He had a summary voice under his left ear that said, you're smart. And then he had about 50 voices of, I think I mentioned this the other day, of people telling him he was intelligent in situations where he just demonstrated his intelligence. And one of them was his father saying, I don't know where you got all that intelligence from. Wonderful, presupposed intelligence. It presupposed that he was smarter than his father. So I used that as the positive template, what you've all been exploring. This was 10 or 11 years ago, but we happened to get it on video, and we got a wonderful follow-up too. And so I just used that template to build a new experience of himself as being lovable, a new database. So I said, think of times when people have commented on your being caring and sweet or kind, lovable, loving, whatever. And think of what some other people have said or what they would say if they described that situation. And just go into his memory and pull up situations and then make it into a voice and put the voice here and get about 50 of them. And after he had about 50 voices, to create from those a summary voice that summarized all these voices. And the summary voice says, I am loved, which is very nice, very sweet. A little different than lovable. Lovable means you're capable of being loved. I am loved means I am loved. So it's a little more immediate. It's a little more in the moment. And at the end of this, I did some talking in between. I think the total was about 17 minutes, but the actual working with him was probably 4 or 5. And at the end of that, I said, are you lovable? And he goes, yes. And earlier he said, does not compute. And now he said, yes. And I said, how does that feel? And he goes, very strange. Because he himself is different. When you change people's self-concept, it's not that the world is different, but they themselves are different. The person who is perceiving and evaluating events is different. Like the camera is different. It's not just the scenery is different, the camera is different. And as it happened, we got follow-up with his wife, and she said she noticed, she didn't know what we'd done, but she noticed when he walked in the door that evening, coming back from the seminar, that his step was lighter, that his shoulders were softer, and his voice was softer. And over the next couple of weeks, he played with kids. He did a whole bunch of things that he'd just never done before. He was less judgmental, all kinds of things. And he had previously said that he repeatedly asked his wife for reassurance. Do you love me? If she went away for an afternoon to visit friends, he would call her up and ask when she's coming home, and this could be called dependent behavior. So it made a very nice shift. Now, kind of go through the process. It sounds like nobody here really wants to do this right now, but maybe you'll change your mind as we go through this. Hypnotic suggestion. One is to think of some content, something you would like to be. What would I like to be? Who do I admire in the world? I kind of went through that over there earlier. And then congruence check. Would you really want to be this? If you were this way, would there be any problems? And maybe you want to adjust the quality. We're using nominalizations for qualities. Loyalty, what does loyalty mean? To whom would you be loyal? And in what respect would you be loyal? Honest, what kind of honesty would you have, and so on. And different people have different definitions. So you can adjust your definition of the quality to fit with your criteria, because you want to make sure that it fits with all the rest of who you are. But let's assume that you can adjust the quality in your representation, so yeah, that I'd like to be. There's other things I wouldn't want to be, but this, yes, I'd like to be. Then you want to test for an existing database. You go, okay, think of this name that you've given to this quality, whatever that name is. What's your database like for this quality? Do you have one or two or three or positives and then maybe a couple of negatives, or what's in there? And now that you know how to look inside for a database, or listen inside, or feel inside, you can take a name like, let's say, loyalty. Are you a loyal person? And some people would go, yep, I'm loyal. And other people go, yeah, not really. And other people go, well, what are you talking about? And that's the one we really want. That does not compute. The others we'll get to. But this is the simplest possible case. And it's also the rarest, because usually you have some kind of database in there that's ambiguous, or that's negative, or that's positive. So you want to test for existing database, and you hope that there's not. And then you've already been doing steps 4 and 5 in the last day and a half. You took something that was positive, and then we beefed it up. We made it even stronger by adding all these things. So this is already done. And then you just use that structure, whatever it is, and you build the new quality. And you want to test at the end for congruence. First, you just test, do you have it? Are you loyal? And you watch, of course, the nonverbals as well as the verbals. And then, is it okay with you? Are you happy to be this person? So it's pretty straightforward. It's almost like you have a bunch of mailboxes, and you just plug experience into all these mailboxes. Take a little while, go inside. Yeah.
I have another quality, but I'm still not sure that it fits. It's quality where people would say this to me, you're a very person, and I say, what?
Okay.
But I could see where I might have some negatives as far as a negative database is concerned. I have a database of some opposites.
Yeah.
So does that fit the criteria?
Well, why don't you check it out over lunch? We got 10 minutes to go to lunch, and I don't want to start now.
Right.
Why don't you check it out? Find out. You have a name for this quality.
Yes.
Right? So just think of that name. Is this me or not? Now, there's another possibility that you have, I forgot to mention this one, that you think of this quality and all the representations are of other people.
Okay.
Which would indicate that other people have it, but I don't. Yeah, I know what honesty is, but
Yeah.
gosh, I know other people have been honest, but gosh, I don't have any pictures of me being honest.
Yes, that fits.
That kind of thing.
That fits.
Okay. Well, think about it over lunchtime, and let's see what use we can make of these 10 minutes, because I don't want to start right now.
Okay, right.
And
Can you go over number 6, build quality?
sure, it's what I did with this gentleman.
Yeah.
I just said, think of one situation where you were very loved, because he wanted to be lovable. Think of a situation in which you were loved and someone said to you, that was a sweet thing you did, or something like that, or what a nice present you gave, or that someone else is loving them. Situation in which someone else is loving them, put that into a sentence, then put that sentence in this location. And then find another one, put it in, find another one, put it in, find another one, put it in, and so on. Okay? Now, if someone had a collage of images, you'd say, get an image of some time when you were clearly loved and someone expressed all sorts of nice feelings to you, make an image of that, put it in one of these boxes, now get another one, put it in another box, and so on.
He puts it in his database.
Yes. You take the structure that you got from what I call a positive template is the structure of the positive database. And then you just put a new set of content in. Okay? Katie?
Two things. One, when you just said, you mentioned that he was auditory,
Uh-huh.
and you said when someone said to you, so the word said, so that he would access an auditory.
Right.
So if it was visual, you'd say when someone wrote you or someone.
Well, just an image. It could be an image of anything, but
so
this.
you really, it's really important when you're building a quality to try and work with whatever their main
Sure.
system is.
That's part of the structure.
Okay.
Part of the structure is, it's either images or voices or feelings.
Okay, and the other question was, if you know you don't believe you are a quality, but you don't believe you're not the quality, it's just sort of like.
I never even thought of it.
Right, that's what you're looking
That's
for.
ideal.
Okay.
Yeah. That's ideal, because then there's nothing in there to get in your way.
It's like you have examples of not being that, but it's not counter-examples of being
Right.
the opposite.
Right.
Got it, okay.
Yeah. See, some people divide the world in two. You're either kind or you're unkind.
Mhm.
And that's not really true. You can be kind, you can be unkind. There's a whole bunch of stuff like this carpet or a pair of shoes that are neither kind nor unkind.
Right, got it, you can get it.
Okay?
And you said something about the structure, his own structure of his original database.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And that's-
first you ask him about
I asked him about intelligence.
intelligence and how with,
Yeah. And he had about 50 voices under his left
so
ear.
then you put it all in voices.
Yep. Because I want to do it the way he does it. That's why we spent all the time yesterday and early today. How do you do counterexamples? How do you do a positive quality of your self-concept? Okay, Rick?
Well, it was Katie
Mhm.
said that it's a quality that you have some counterexamples of, but how did you say that?
Well, they're not counter-examples of doing the opposite, they're just examples of not doing that quality.
Okay.
And there are always going to be those.
Yeah,
Oh, So take mean and cruel. Let's say I have no real examples of being of kind and cruel. I'm sorry. I have no real examples of being kind, but I don't really have examples of being cruel either. I've got a lot of examples of being loyal or honest and so on and intelligent, but I just don't really have anything much for either kind or cruel. That's when this really works well. Okay?
I think I have it, but I'll check it out.
Okay, check it out over lunch and let me know after lunch. And it's a couple more minutes. Do you have any questions or?
I mean, how do you?
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just my brain is not.
Your brain is fried. What?
I would try to. I mean, you have no database for this example. So I mean, how do you know you want this quality? I mean, for example, if somebody came up to me and said something to me, and I just went, and I just.
Well,
Threw
let me
off
give
of
you
it,
my
and-
example of spiritual.
Mhm.
I have representations of other people being spiritual and what that means. But I have no representations of me being spiritual. So I know what the word means. I just never applied it to myself. Is that? You still have a question, I think.
I do. I'm just trying to compute.
Okay, let me get his question first and then we'll come back.
Steve, have we done, we've done auditory, we've done visual, have we done a kinesthetic template.
No.
I would find it helpful. Can you do that briefly in a couple minutes?
Well,
Give an example?
it would be particularly useful in things like sports or any kind of activity where you are actually using your body a lot, in contrast to, I mean, you use your body all the time. You
Right.
can't not use your body, but some things use your body much more.
Okay.
So someone who says, well, you know, I'm a good athlete,
Coordinated.
I'm coordinated.
Yeah,
That could be a visual database.
right.
It could be an auditory one of people commenting on how well you threw the ball or something like that. Or it could be a kinesthetic of actually throwing the ball or actually doing golf or whatever the skills might be. And it could be a variety of skills. Coordination is something that can go over a lot of different skills, right?
Exactly.
So it could be volleyball,
Mhm.
setting a volleyball and
So-
smashing it.
So someone who has that ability, database may be a kinesthetic database.
Yep. Kinesthetic learner, and very good athletes do have this.
Have you run across this, or give us an example?
Oh yeah, well I was just about to.
Okay.
I've been playing volleyball since I was in college, and I didn't get great, but I got better than just duffer. And this was about 10 years ago. I've been playing volleyball at the local rec center, where certain days there's volleyball hour or just a segment of time. People come, they play volleyball. A guy came in, he was a high school teacher of athletics. He learned more about volleyball in 2 hours than I had learned in 35 years of playing volleyball. He learned to do some things that are very difficult that most people have to work at for weeks and weeks and weeks, or months and months and months before you get it. And he got that better than I could do. Now, he had exquisite sense of his muscles, his body position, and so on, and he could key that into seeing how someone else moved, so that if someone else would demonstrate something, he could copy it almost perfectly immediately. Let's say 95% proficiency immediately, and from then on he would just tune it up by experience. Now, most people can't do that. Most people can do 5 or 10, 20, 30%. He was very, very fast. And you could see by his body that just the way he moved, some people are just more muscular and more coordinated than others. And he just had developed and it was no accident that he taught athletics, because he was very, very good at it. So
if you asked him, so how do you know you're coordinated?
Mm-hmm.
He would have pictures maybe? He would have
Well,
a feeling in his
I didn't
body?
ask him. This was before I really developed a lot of this stuff, and I
Right.
didn't think to ask him.
Right.
He might have had images of himself moving. You see, you can translate an experience into all the different rep systems.
Right.
So he might have had pictures. He might have had actual micro-muscle movement kinesthetics, where he just have a sense of that movement and entering into that movement.
Right.
I don't know. A kinesthetic database would almost have to be sequential. You can have a chorus of voices, but except for that little funny thing that I demonstrated the other evening, where you have parts of kinesthetics in different parts of your body simultaneously,
Right.
that's an unusual situation. Most people wouldn't volunteer for that. Usually it'd be, golf, throwing a ball, volleyball, be sequential kind of thing.
Right.
But you can do sequential in the visual system anyway. Have you sharpened your question at all, or
No.
should we get it after lunch?
We'll get after
Okay.
some more.
Okay, great. Okay, enjoy your lunch, and I'll see you back about 1:30.